Professor Julian Stanley Kenny, author, zoologist, educator, environmental activist, senator, and columnist, was a man whose life resisted simple definition. To name just one of his callings is to miss the breadth of his influence. He left an enduring imprint on the intellectual, environmental, and civic life of Trinidad and Tobago. Born in Woodbrook in 1930, Kenny was shaped early by a deep curiosity and discipline. He attended St. Mary's College before completing grade 13 in Canada, and in 1951 earned a Bachelor of Science degree from the University of Toronto. Armed with knowledge and purpose, he returned home, married, and entered public service as a scientific officer in what would later become the Fisheries Division. There, his work helped modernize fisheries management, introducing systems and protocols that strengthened the sector for generations to come. His pursuit of excellence led him onward to Birkbeck College at the University of London, where he completed his doctorate, before returning once more to Trinidad and Tobago to join the Department of Biological Sciences at the University of the West Indies. From the earliest days of his career, Professor Kenny distinguished himself not only as a scientist, but as a steadfast guardian of the natural world. Advocacy for environmental preservation became a lifelong commitment, one he upheld with clarity, courage, and consistency.
Professor Kenny and I both came here at the same time, 1963. He to the zoology department, I to the botany department. So that in a sense, the two of us built the foundations of both those departments. And we became very close friends. He stood on principle.
Professor Kenny was, above all, a natural teacher, one whose classroom extended far beyond four walls. For 29 years, he served with distinction in the Department of Life Sciences at UWI St. Augustine, shaping generations of students through his deep command of the natural sciences and his unwavering commitment to environmental vigilance. His influence was not confined to lectures alone. It lived on in the curiosity he inspired and the responsibility he instilled in young minds.
He was the first person I thought of as a true Renaissance figure with a wide interest, really ready to talk about anything, to ask any kinds of questions. He never made students feel small, even if we didn't really know something or were not confident in what we knew. He was always ready and open and willing to open all kinds of doors for you, for opportunity to make yourself better, to meet people, to go places. He led us, like a family, and I felt really honored to be part of his tribe.
Through his research, Professor Kenny made significant contributions to the understanding of Caribbean animal life. Under his guidance, students advanced vital knowledge of some of Trinidad and Tobago's most delicate and complex ecosystems, including the Tamana Cave System, the Caroni Swamp, and the Oripo Savannas. His own work meticulously documented the distribution of freshwater fish species across the nation, creating a scientific record of enduring value.
I met Professor Kenny when I'd very recently arrived in Trinidad to start a postdoctoral research project on freshwater fishes. And so my team, Professor Ramnarayan and Professor McGurran, who knew Professor Kenny very well, decided I ought to meet him because he had laid the groundwork in that field of study.
Determined that his knowledge should never be lost to time, Professor Kenny ensured that it was shared generously and preserved with care. His many books, enriched with his own photographs of orchids, landscapes, and local wildlife, stand as both scientific resources and works of quiet beauty. In a final act of stewardship, he donated his vast personal collection to the National Library of Trinidad and Tobago, opening its doors to future researchers and reaffirming his belief that knowledge, once gained, must always be passed on.
Many of my colleagues came through with him as their mentor or their supervisor, and now have flourishing careers or enjoyed careers that were a legacy of his influence on them. This semester I'm teaching freshwater ecology to third-year students of biology here, and I always start the first lecture by giving them that history of the study of freshwater ecology. So that includes a slide talking about Professor Kenny's contribution to the field, and Dr. Alkinscue and Dr. Phillip, to give them that history and the background, especially that's come from this department, and that hopefully some of them will go on to be the next freshwater ecologists, building on that even more, because there's still plenty more to learn about these species. It's just he set such a good foundation for us to do that.
Professor Kenny's depth of knowledge and moral clarity naturally called him into service beyond the lecture hall and laboratory. His counsel was sought, his judgment trusted, and his voice welcomed at the nation's most consequential tables. He served as chairman of the board of the Institute of Marine Affairs, the Environmental Management Authority, and the board of trustees of the Guardian Life Wildlife Trust, institutions charged with protecting not only ecosystems, but the public's understanding of their value. In each role, he brought patience, principle, and an unwavering respect for science in the service of the common good. That same sense of duty guided him into public life. For 5 years, Professor Kenny served Trinidad and Tobago as an independent senator in the upper house, where he stood apart from party lines and spoke instead for reason, evidence, and the long view.
I think his contributions in the Senate were always marked by a high degree of detachment. Detachment doesn't mean he didn't care. It just meant he was detached from the old talk and the cross talk and so on. And I think that's what made him a particularly strong contributor. And he also had a very clear sense that we had whatever he was saying about a particular matter, is usually legislation, sometimes there are private members' motions. Whatever he was saying, he was balancing it. You could see him balancing it all the time from this perspective of a scientist. Is this real? Is this tangible? What do we do about this? And I think he was really an admirable person, because he could take any controversial issue and become very detached, not uninvolved, but very detached from the passion. And so I think that was his real strength. His contribution was overall one of the best contributions in the time that I was in the Senate.
In Parliament as in nature, he understood that balance matters, and that the most lasting decisions are those made with wisdom, restraint, and care for generations yet to come.
What I admired most about him was he used to break everything down into issues that had very little emotion. Does not mean he didn't have emotion, of course he did. But he used to break the issues down and try and keep them in the purest form as an issue. And there was one thing that really highlights that, which is stuck in my mind, is in the course of a debate on the Integrity in Public Life Act, the Attorney General of the time was talking about misbehavior. And he got up in his usual style and he said, well, as a scientist, we don't recognize misbehavior. As a scientist, we know there's behavior. We don't make any judgment about the quality or whatever about the behavior. It may have certain characteristics, but as scientists, we don't talk about misbehavior. And I thought that was very interesting. And that led to what I think was a private discussion about the bell curve, which is a thing in science where it really is a graph of the distribution of things. And what is normal in inverted commas is the point at which whatever you're studying peaks in the graph, but it's a spectrum. So there are things at either end of the spectrum. What is in the middle is called normal only because that's what most people do. But he would have rejected soundly any idea that because you're not in the middle of the curve, you're not average or conventional, that somehow you're a lesser person. That was a very, very interesting lesson I learned from him. Kenny suited a world where you could be rational and discuss things away from the sort of hurly-burly of confrontational politics.
He was a stickler for what is true and what is right. And because he was highly principled, many people misunderstood him. Some thought he was always critical, but he always tried to get the principle as the main thing in an argument.
He spoke with courage and clarity against environmental injustice, never wavering when silence would have been easier. His advocacy helped give rise to the National Trust, and his wisdom was instrumental on the cabinet-appointed committee that drafted the national parks legislation, laying the foundation for safeguarding the nation's most treasured landscapes. Through action and resolve, he ensured that preservation was written not only into policy, but into the national conscience. It is fitting, then, that excellence in natural science bears his name. The Julian Kenny Award, presented by NEHRST, the National Institute of Higher Education, Research, Science and Technology, stands as a living tribute to his lifelong dedication.
When he passed away, it was really important for me to see that he was honored at UWE in a way that touched future generations. And I structured it, the award, the Julian Kenny Prize, which is an annual award, to select a student from the senior class who, first and foremost, had that particular love for natural history. And so this is separate from performing well in courses and having a good grade and graduating with honors and all of that. This was a separate, unique thing that I feel Dr. Kenny, Prof. Kenny, had, that he nurtured in a whole tribe of people.
He had his way of doing things from what he considered the proper scientific perspective. As you point out, he put a lot of students out there who did very well. And that's really a testament. So whether he gets official honors or not really doesn't matter. But he was a good teacher. I mean, I learned things from him.
He was also a true environmentalist. Many of the courses he designed had the focus of the environment. And he was not one of these persons who is a one-man or one-subject person. He was a zoologist. When he came from the Division of Fisheries to the university, and he immediately started developing a program that allowed for outdoor experiences.
He had passion in orchids, into plants, animals, natural history in general, a great naturalist. So that's quite unusual to find people who have that breadth of interest, passion and influence. We're here in the Zoology Museum in the Department of Life Sciences, and just looking through the shelf of freshwater fishes, you see specimens that were collected by Professor Kenny back in the 1980s, and then you also find specimens collected by his students, Dr. Dawn Phillip, who very much built upon Professor Kenny's work by doing an even more comprehensive survey of the fishes. Her specimens are here. So this is all part of his legacy, those collections which are now here for reference for researchers locally, abroad, maintained for research, education here in our museum. So that's here, and that's all part of that legacy that he would have had.
He was a wonderful person, and not one with a one-track mind. He was interested in so many other things. He was a great loss when he went. It was a great loss to Trinidad.
Professor Julian Stanley Kenny, educator and researcher, leader, environmental advocate, Caribbean icon.